Elliott view?
Yeah, I mean, it was a mess, Laura. It was wild, and it has been for 2 weeks plus, right? So first we have to take one step back to look at what happened last week, right? So 8 years ago in Australia, the G20 nations met, and this was basically after the Lehman Brothers bailout, and they said, "Hey, that was really expensive. We're not going to do bailouts anymore." so that was basically the gist of that meeting, and then come to 2 Fridays ago, right when Silicon Valley Bank imploded. What did Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, say? She said, "Hey, SVB depositors, there's hope, but we're not going to bail you out." Right? So she's following the narrative of what they had, 8 years ago. But how if your bank just went under and somebody said, "We're not going to have a bailout but have hope," how? Right? So
Yeah,
so
what does
I
that even mean?
yeah, so what I'm thinking as an economist, I'm saying, okay, mincing words, she's going to do a bail in, right? So this is what I was thinking, but I was wrong. I was dead dog wrong, and she never meant what she said because they weren't going to do a bail in. She when they said there's not going to be a bailout, she never meant that because that weekend, the next day, they bailed them out.
Yeah,
Everybody, even the uninsured depositors at Silicon Valley Bank. So if you look at that one bank, then we're not going to focus too much time on that bank because there's bigger things that came after that. But $173 billion in checking deposits, 152 billion was over the FDIC limit, right? So that's only 21 billion that was insured. All the rest, 153 billion uninsured. Well, technically, they shouldn't have gotten any money, but the government bailed them out. Then, fast forward to March 15th, another announcement was made after she bailed them out that said, "Hey, any future financial institutions in America, we're not bailing you out." It's like, okay, she's bipolar, right? It's like, what is going on here? But so I got to thinking, why would she bail them out? Well, who is Silicon Valley Bank? Last year, they were 44% of all venture capital to new tech startups. 44% came from them. So they've got all these companies that are involved in chat GPT and open AI and the central bank
right.
digital currency project. They couldn't let their cronies go down in flames, so they bailed them out. Then she says, "We're not bailing out." Then on March 21st, a couple days ago, she basically was speaking at the American Bankers Association meeting. And what did she say? This was, yeah, look at this article. I mean, this is insane. What she said is, "Hey, there's $18 trillion in deposits in America, and the US government is going to backstop all of them. So all depositors, big and small, even small banks, we got your back. We're gonna take care of you." Well, okay, so as I look at that, here's the no-win situation for everybody. Because if they bail them out, and who knows how many banks are going to fail, but you wouldn't have to say something like that if you thought there was going to be no more bailouts, no more bank problems, right?
Right. You
So,
wouldn't even
so
address it. Yeah.
expecting it. So how much of that 18 trillion do they expect to go away? It doesn't matter because they say they're going to bail it all out. They don't have the money. They don't have tax revenues. Income tax revenues are coming down as wages come down. Property tax revenues are coming down as real estate tanks. Sales tax revenues aren't there. Nobody's spending money. There's no tax revenues, which means they're going to have to print, right? They'll print their way out of this thing. That'll cause so much inflation that people ultimately lose their money via loss of purchasing power. So, end result, people lose their money because of loss of purchasing power. Or if they don't bail out the banks, people lose their money because they don't bail out the banks. End result is either way, people lose their money. This is a no-win situation, right? But they're taking printing money via inflationary pressures to bail out all institutions, try to give people this false hope and confidence in a system that is the lesser of two evils, right? So now what happened over the weekend, over this last weekend, is this contagion is spreading overseas. Because then Credit Suisse, one of the larger banks in Europe, basically they were about to implode. Why? Because the contagion is spreading. And Saudi Arabia, which is their largest shareholder, says, "We're not going to inject any more capital in you, stupid bank, because you're kind of sick. You're toxic assets," right? So they're hedging their bets and they're not going to invest any more capital. That caused Credit Suisse to come down more than 20% in their share price in one day. So if that implodes, imagine what would happen. So the size is important here because Silicon Valley Bank, 173 billion in checking accounts and savings accounts, Credit's 1.3 trillion. It's like 8 times the size. So
It's
if that
amazing.
big,
Yeah, the scale is staggering.
staggering. So then UBS, a European bank that's even bigger, says we're going to buy Credit Suisse for $3.2 billion in an emergency rescue. So here's what I'm thinking. The math doesn't add up, Laura. 3.2 billion to buy a bank that has 1.3 trillion in checking and savings. It's like either the people at UBS are the greatest negotiators on the planet and they got the biggest bargain of all time, or something's wrong with that bank. And I think, and we don't really have the numbers because we don't have them. They're a European bank. But here, let's take an equivalent of like US banks. JP Morgan Chase has $55 trillion in derivatives debt. Goldman Sachs has $53 trillion in derivatives debt. Citibank has 43 trillion. So look at this, 47 trillion. It went up. This is a live active list, right? Bank of America, 19 trillion. Wells Fargo, 12 trillion. So if you look at Credit Suisse, they're a big, huge bank, like probably on the lower end of this list here. Let's just say they have on the low end $1 trillion worth of derivatives debt. Well, why? I wouldn't pay a dime to buy $1 trillion worth of debt. I mean, that's stupid. But UBS had to do was fend off basically a capitulation in the stock market on the bank stocks, because that would have had this contagion that spread all over Europe. UBS didn't want to go down in flames because they probably have way more derivatives debt. They didn't want Credit Suisse because what happened in America when Silicon Valley Bank went under was, well, so did Silvergate Bank, so did Signature Bank. PacWest Bank is
That's
being
right.
Hey, they're hitting the skids, right? This contagion is spreading, and it's a contagion of debt. And what's happening, if I start to connect some of these pieces, and feel free and correct me if you think that I'm wrong, but the same people that are offering a solution, the central banks, the World Economic Forum, all these people, they're coming in with a solution of, hey, we've got central bank digital currency. We can fix the problem with that. So who are they? They're the same ones that have the banking system now. So it's almost like a zero-lose situation. We're going to break a bank system because we want one that's complete control, communist, fascist control over your bank accounts, where we have the ability to cut you off from buying or selling, according to Dr. Pippa Malmgren at the World Government Forum in Abu Dhabi. She said that. So imagine the PR nightmare here and how hard this would be. How many people trust the government globally? Well, I would say not much, right? How many people
fewer every day?
Yeah, fewer every day. How many people trust banks, especially after this? Well, not many. So how many people then would trust a central bank digital currency, which is a bank run by the government? It's like, oh my, now it's this compounding effect. How about a bank that's run by the government where they've said, if they don't like your digital social profile, we're going to cut you off from buying or selling? Well, nobody's going to want that piece of garbage. They just wouldn't. But if the crisis is so bad and people lose confidence in even their, what should be the safest thing that they have, their checking account, well, if they lose confidence, they'll give away all of their freedoms in exchange for the solution and the fix. So this is where I see it's going. But people have a misperception about their banks. People have this perception that it's this marble staircase and these marble columns and these pillars, and you go in, big old Roman style architecture building, and there's this big steel rounded bank vault door, and you open it up and there's piles of $100 bills that come flying out of it, right? The reality is that's not reality. The reality is you go back to the summer of 2020, the Federal Reserve in Regulation D changed the reserve requirement to 0. The reality is all that's in that bank vault is cobwebs because there's no money. The banks don't have to have anything on hand. So how close are we to a bank run? We're close. So what do they do then with all these deposits? Like Silicon Valley Bank, $173 billion in deposits. What do they do with it? Well,
Where is it?
Well, this is the wacky thing. So people call me all the time and say, Kirk, I've been listening to you. I'm scared of the stock market. I'm sitting on
Yeah,
the sideline and I'm in a safe place because I don't want to be in stocks. I don't want to be in bonds. What are those banks investing your money in? Stocks, bonds, companies, real estate, right? The same thing that you got out of and thinking that you're safe in cash, they're investing in the
they're
same
doing
thing.
it. Yeah.
In reality, you never did anything. It's just it's a facade, right? So
Yeah.
so this is
Yeah.
what the
So you're
reality is.
thinking like, I'm going to take all my money out of the stock market because I'm worried the stock market is going to crash. And I'm going to put my money in the bank, except the bank's money is in the stock market and the bank's money is your
Same
money,
thing.
right? So
Same thing.
they're
So
kind of
nothing ever
robbing
happened.
Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah. So here's where that gets that. This is why this bank crisis happened because zero. They don't have to have anything on hand. The stuff that they're investing in is coming down. That's why you got out of it, right? So stock market came down 30% last year.
Right.
Real estate's
Right.
tanking. So if they don't have any capital on hand, markets are tanking. And then you've got companies that, so many tech companies under Biden's administration, the economy stinks. They need money. They're going to the bank to pull money out because they need to make payroll or they need a line of credit or something. And there's
Yes.
no money there. This is how Silicon Valley Bank went under, was too many people were pulling money out and they didn't have it. Then that caused a contagion because people thought, well, good grief, if that big bank went under, what about my little community bank? What about my credit union? What about this? And it spins out of control really
Well, and
fast.
also, Kurt, I was one of the people, I put out there on social media, join a local bank, right? Get out of these big banks and get to a local bank. And other people pointed out that those local banks have been bought up by, many of them have been bought out, right, by big banks. So you're not even sure that your local bank really is a local bank.
Not anymore, but what you said was actually very accurate. But in today's world, over the last year, there's been a massive consolidation of smaller banks being bought up by the big ones. And so I've said the same thing because overall, credit unions have been the safest because they're owned by the members. They're never going to do anything risky and
Right.
crazy and wild and weird, right? They're not too big
Right.
to have international derivatives, but for the first time that I've seen in forever, maybe.
Mhm.
The credit unions, a liquidation notice to creditors of Inter-American Federal Credit Union, a credit union went into liquidation mode. And so, good grief, nothing seems to be safe anymore in the banking system in paper money except for tangible assets. What you and I have been talking about, things never go to zero, Laura, never. When was the last time you went to the grocery store and the eggs that were $7 a dozen are
Yeah, we're
zero?
free.
How about when
Well,
you
the
go to
price
buy?
dropped. Yeah.
Yeah, it
But
has
Kurt,
cars on the lot been zero? No, they don't. Gas doesn't go to zero. Things don't go to zero. So, but companies can. Banks just went under. FTX went under. BlockFi went under. Enron went under a long time ago, right? Banks or companies can go to zero overnight. Things never do.
okay, so the one question that a lot of people have been asking me is, okay, what if the government does what they did before when they just put out an order and seize all your gold or seize all your gold and silver? What's to stop them doing that?
Well, really nothing. I mean, so that's a great question, right? Because the government, through brute force, has the power to confiscate whatever it wants, right? Land,
Yeah,
bank, even your children. But if
unbelievable.
you
Yeah,
have things in a tangible asset that's not digital, it makes it much harder, right? So
yeah,
through bail-in legislation, if something is digital, a checking account, saving account, brokerage account, boop, flip of a button, they can do a 10% one-off tax, right? That's what happened in Cyprus. And it's gone. You had 100,000 in your bank one day, 90,000 the next. If you had metals, for example, gold or silver stored at a depository, well, it's not digital, right? They have to actually go in there by brute force, take it if they wanted to, figure out who it belongs to. It's not that easy, but only 2% of the population owns gold, 0.9% owns silver. If you're a policymaker, Laura, if you're a congresswoman, you're going to say, I want my legislation to impact masses. I want to make a big splash, right? And
yeah.
especially in a power grab where you're looking for money, You're going to go after the low-lying fruit, something that 98% of the population has checkings accounts, savings account, brokerage accounts. You're not going to go after something that 0.9% of the population has. It's not big enough. It doesn't amount to much for them. So when you look at all of that, bottom line, the government can do whatever the government wants to do whenever they want to do it, right? Ultimately, people will pitch a fit and say, no, you're not on my watch, right? But they make it.
Or at least you can buy yourself some time.
Yeah, it makes
right?
it
Because
harder.
with the with digital control of your bank accounts and digital money, you got no time. It's instant, right? And they control it. You don't even know it's happening. Whereas
Correct.
good luck to the person who's going to show up at your door. If you've been out in the middle of the night burying your gold and silver, then God help those that come and try to, dig up your yard, right?
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is force majeure, right? So it's like government, some kind of a natural disaster, whatever. Well, assets in depositories, for example, natural disasters, act of God's, they're covered for that. Nothing can cover for the government coming in and wanting to take something. Nothing can, other than making it harder for that to happen. Yes, exactly right.
Except the will of the people. Well, I know we have to leave it there. That is not cheerful news, right? It doesn't look like it's about to get any better. And if you're worried about the banks, you're worried about a run on the banks. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to leave your assets there just to be wiped away. So for those of you who are interested, you can go to lauralogangold.com. You can talk to Dr. Kirk. You can ask questions. You can start digging, right? Start disappearing in the middle of the night and go to your hidden spot to go and hide away those assets so they can't be seized. I don't know. It's a pretty big picture. However, we are looking forward to talking to you again next week, and hopefully things will be a little rosier by then, but I'm not holding my breath. Dr. Kirk, thank you so much.
You bet. My pleasure.
Most people like me, I'm not an expert, right? And I don't pretend to be. But I hear from everybody, buy silver, buy gold, because the stock market is tanking, real estate is tanking. And, we wanted to make sense of all of that. And the best person that I could find was Dr. Kirk Elliott. And not just the best in his field, but a really good person. And that's important to me. Integrity matters. And so, to make it more affordable for people, to give people an option to understand and the ability to do something about it, we turn to Dr. Kirk Elliott and I interview him every week and put that show out. It's to help people stay ahead of things and to give them some idea of how to make sense of the economic madness around us in this moment. He is more than happy to give a free consultation because he really does care about his clients, and he is doing this for the right reasons, and he does it himself, right? I mean, he's gotten rid of all his stocks and bonds, and he's heavily invested in gold and silver and precious metals. So if you go on there, you can sign up for a free consultation. Use lauralogan.gold. I know there's a number of steps. It can be a little time consuming as you work your way around, but it's worth it. If you're interested, then go to the domain you're looking for is lauralogangold.com. That, once again, is lauralogangold.com, and I spell my name Lara, no U, for those of you wondering. So if you're driving in your car, let me repeat that one more time. It's lauralogangold.com, and you spell that Lara. At the next event. My name is Laura Logan, and I think everyone should use mypillow.com if you care about this country.